Hi everybody, it's Oksana, and today I want to show you how to make this pendant right here. This is Petersite gemstone wrapped in stainless steel. It's a cabochon, teardrop cabochon. And for the stainless steel, I'm using 24 gauge base wires and 28 gauge for the weaving wire. 30 would work even better. I just only had 28. They are very thin gauges, but if you've never worked with stainless steel before, it's because it's such a stiff metal that I'm using such thin gauges. If I use the typical, 20 gauge base and then 26, 28 for the weaving wire, it would just be really difficult. This was already difficult, but that would just be impossible. So if you are making this with copper, though, I do suggest bumping up the gauges. Do not use 24 for the base wire if you're using copper. That's going to be too thin and too floppy. So just throwing it out there. You can make it out of any metal you want, of course. I just happened to have made this out of stainless because I thought it would look nice with the blue kind of cool tones of the stone. You can use silver, though. So anyways, if you want to see how I made this piece, then just keep watching. So I'm starting out with 3 pieces of stainless steel soft wire. This is actually just 24 gauge wire, and I have 3 8-inch pieces, and then I have 2 shorter pieces. These are about 3 inches. I have my cabochon that I'm going to be working with, which is a relatively small pear-shaped piece of Petersite. And then I have my weaving wire, which is 28 gauge. And my stainless steel I got from Supply and Design on Etsy. That's just the only one I've ever used. I don't really know how it compares to anything else. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find, not necessarily like the middle, but my cabochon is pretty small, so when this goes around it, it'll probably be like this distance. So I'm going to start to weave about right here. I'm leaving myself some room. That's going to be the bail later on. So I'm just going to weave on these 3 wires. Let me kind of straighten them out a little bit so it's easier. So here's my 28 gauge wire. And at first I'm putting it right above the bottom wire. I'm holding it with my finger just so it doesn't slip out. And I'm making just like one little loop. I'm not going to do that as part of the pattern. This is just to like start the wire and secure it. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it up and through here above the second wire, so it makes kind of like a loop around the bottom too. Then I'm bringing it up again and over the next 2 wires. So when I put it to the back, I'm putting it through here, like above the bottom wire. And that's actually the pattern. It's really simple. It's just one loop around the bottom 2 wires, one loop around the top 2 wires, and it repeats. So let me show you in 1 second what that looks like up close. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to estimate kind of the side of my weave. So this is probably going to go like here as one side of my cabochon. So after a little bit, when I get to like right here, I'll show you guys how to attach one of these other little wires that I brought with me. So I weaved for a little bit. My wire's bumpy because I did something and I had to undo it. But I'm taking this little piece of the stainless wire. I'm putting it just a tiny bit above, so not flush with the rest of my wires, but just a smidge above, so there's that like flexibility of movement that it has. And then I'm just doing some single wraps around it, maybe like 5 or 4 wraps or something. So then we're gonna tighten those wraps up like that. And because we left that little bit, this is flexible, so now we can move it. And the next part of my weave would normally go, I would come in through here with my wire. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And I would go over the bottom 2, up over the top 2. So now I am continuing with my weaving pattern. Oops, that came out. I need to tighten that up because my wire is all bumpy. And then go ahead and, you know, push that up right up against your weave. It should be able to push flush up against there without any gaps. And we're going to keep going for a little bit. So this is one side of my cabochon. Right, this is kind of like the middle of one side. Once I have enough to where I go around here and I'm in the opposite side, I will attach another wire in the same exact manner. Alright, so I think this is long enough now. Let's check though. Okay, that seems like it's good. So what you want to take care to do here is that you're attaching the wire on the same side. So if you have bent it around your stone, you might get confused and attach it, you know, on the underside, but don't do that. It needs to be on the same edge here. So here is, it's got a little twisted, but here's my 3 wires here. And the next loop I do is I go over the top 2 wires. That's the next portion of my pattern. So now I'm leaving myself a little room, just like a few millimeters of room here. And I'm wrapping my weaving wire exactly as we did on that other tiny wire. We're just wrapping it a few times. Almost 4 times. Sorry, my weaving wire is getting tangled up. And then after we do that, we're just going to continue with the pattern. And so I'm going to tighten that up a little bit. So the next portion of the pattern would be for me to come through these 2 wires like this, and then I'm going over the bottom 2. I'm going to bend this little wire out of the way here, and then top 2, and then bottom 2, and I'm going to tighten up my weave because it did get a little bit spaced out when I added this wire, but because we left that gap, that allows me to push this together. So I'm going to continue now until this weave bends all the way around my stone, with the exception of this very top tip, because basically I want this to cover my stone, but I want the window to be a tiny bit smaller than my stone so my stone doesn't pop through. So that's why I'm not starting measuring, you know, like this. I'm starting kind of like this to make sure that that little window will be just slightly smaller. Alright, so now I have a little frame, and the frame fits around my stone, and then if I close it up right here where the 2 weaves meet up, it's too small for my stone to pop through. So the easiest way to do it is I like to lay it flat on a table and just bend the wire around it on a flat surface, just kind of like pushing it down around it. That's easiest for me, but whatever works for you for bending it. And what we're going to do now is we're going to close up this frame. So I have this little tail. You can cut that off and get rid of it. I'll cut it off in a few minutes here. But that was when we first started. And then we have all of these wires. So what I want to do is bend the very side two out of place, out of the way. All right, so we're going to weave just around these two most inner wires right here for the bail, and also just to connect. So what you want to do is line them up so that your weave lines up as well, so they are just like right next to each other, so that when you start weaving around them, it looks nice and tight. So I'm going to do the following weave, and you can do whatever one you want, but I'm putting it around the bottom one time. Then I'm putting it, bringing it up the back, putting it around the top one time. Then I'm bringing it up over both of them, all the way down. And then up over just the bottom one. Now this is a repeat. Over just the top one, up and down the both of them. So this will look nice once it's tightened up. You want to tighten it up every few wraps, because this is one of those patterns that if you don't tighten it up, it becomes hard to tighten it later on. But this is what it should be looking like. You can tighten your wire. I'm going to tighten this one up a little bit. There was like a little bit of a space. I think once I trim this, that'll help too. So we have now made a window where, a stone will fit, but it's not going to pop through. So I'm going to go for a little bit, because that's going to be my bail. All right, so when you have that tall enough, you want to tighten up that weave and then bend these wires. There we go. That's going to prevent the weave from sliding back up, because the wires are bent now. So this is the front. What we're going to do now is we're actually going to secure the stone. Before we work on the bail some more and finish up the bail, we needed to do this part of it just to close up this little window. But now we're going to work on putting the stone in here and securing it. So I'm going to go to the back here. And I'm going to use these wires to trap the stone in the frame. So first I'm using these two. This is a little hard to hold the stone and mess around with the wires at the same time, but I'm just twisting them together like this for now. And there's other ways to do it too. You can use a weaving wire and connect the two of them. And now I'm twisting the top ones as well. Now I'm bending this bail, to have it take the form of a bail now. Bending it here to the back. And now I'm using these wires to wrap around the wires that are coming from the bail. And this is so much harder with stainless steel wire than copper. So now you want to trim those and pinch down the ends. All right. Now we don't want this visible. from the front. So we're just going to push this down, because right now you can see it from the front. Like that. What I want to do now is I want to take my weaving wire and I want to weave the following pattern. I'm going to do it on this side, and then I'm going to do it again on the other side. And what I'm going to do is I'm putting it through both of them. And for this side, I'm wrapping around the top wire 4 times. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And for the other side, it depends on how you hold it. It's basically, it is going to mirror. So, you know, if you're holding it the same way, then it's going to be 4 wraps around this top wire. But if you turn it and you hold it this way, then this becomes the bottom wire, you know. Basically, you want the single wraps to be on the wires that are closest to the bail. And then after those 4 wraps, I'm going to do 2 around both. So 1, 2. So here's the close-up. And while I'm close up, I might as well show you guys the back as well. And I'm going to do that on both sides until it's long enough for me to bend this. It's going to be like the bail, but, you know, just on the side. Like 2 little side bails for extra decoration. Alright, so what I did is I weaved on both of these sides. I cut off all my weaving wire ends. So all that you're going to do now is you're just going to bend these portions to be kind of like the side bail here. And you can either, when you put your necklace, you can like put it through all 3 or just through the central one. You can make these a little taller or a little shorter than the middle one there. So it's really up to you and what you like and what you think looks good. So here in the back, I have these wires, and then I have these side ones that are coming from this bail here. So put these side ones out so you can kind of tell them apart. And then once, you know, you're satisfied with these 2, they're like the, you know, same height. Here I'm going to use my pliers to kind of, mine are getting a little bit sideways. There we go. Stainless steel wire is not super cooperative, unfortunately. So I'm just taking this now, my side wire that was sticking out the side, and I'm just wrapping it a couple of times around these 2 wires. And same thing on this side, just basically to lock them into place, to secure them. And even though it's only 24 gauge, it's still so much harder to work with than copper. Alright. So, I think my back is kind of messy looking, but it's as neat as I can get it with stainless. So now I'm going to cut the one that I just wrapped. I'm going to kind of pinch that down. I might need to get different cutters. That's another thing about stainless, is it's hard to cut it. You might ruin your cutters cutting it. These are old anyways. I'm not using my new good cutters. There we go. Alright, so I'm going to pinch that down so it's the end of it is underneath and not sticking out. Oh my goodness, it does not want to bend in that direction. So now all that's left pretty much is just figuring out what to do here in the back with all these extra little wires. In terms of the front, it's pretty much all done. Let me see here. There we go. Just want to make sure that this is even. There. That looks even. Okay. So we got these wires left and these wires left here. I'm just going to cut them all pretty short and then make little curly loops with them. All right. Using my round nose pliers. The way that I curl this, I try to get the end to go under. Stainless steel can be pretty sharp. Like, I've poked my finger with the ends a few times, and it's a lot less fun than copper. So I try to get the ends to, really be under there and away from everything. So now we just have these. I'm just doing both of them. I know there's like 2 little wires, but I'm just grabbing both of them at the same time. You can do one at a time, it doesn't matter. I might have to do one at a time here because they kind of separated, but just getting it all out of the way. Alright, so I just curled those just a little bit more, just as high up as I could curl them, to try and make that look slightly better. I don't know, I guess it's a little better now. But anyway, so this is the back, and this is the front, and this is the side. Could have made that little window tiny bit bigger. As you can see, my stone is a lot bigger than the little frame, but that's just for future reference. Anyways, so this is it. This is the final piece. Hopefully this was helpful, and thank you so much for watching. Bye.